This is the simple story of Raka, a hardworking man who never gave up. He never imagined that his life would change the moment he met Dina, the beautiful owner of the workshop. A strong woman who eventually found the true meaning of love once again. Alongside them is Ika, a loyal friend and a living witness to their journey of love, filled with both tears and heartfelt moments. Since his teenage years, Raka's life had been marked by deep sorrow. His mother chose to leave with another man. From that moment on, Raka lived only with his father, a motorcycle mechanic in their village. His father refused to remarry. "Who knows, maybe your mother will come back one day," he said, clinging to an empty hope. For Raka, his father was a friend, a teacher, and a role model in life. In a small workshop with only a tin roof and dirt floor, Raka's father patiently taught him about every bolt, oil, engine, and the ways to repair motorcycles. After graduated from technical high school, Raka turned down job offers in the city. He chose instead to stay loyal, working alongside his father in that old workshop. Though the tools they had were simple, their skills were unquestionable. Until one day, Raka's father suddenly fell ill, and eventually God called him home, leaving Raka forever. Raka's world seemed to collapse. His heart was completely shattered, and loneliness surrounded him. Since his father's passing, the workshop had grown even quieter. People preferred the official repair shops over Raka's. The tools were often borrowed by neighbors and never returned. And many who owed him money never paid their debts. Raka often worked with his uncle as a construction laborer to make ends meet. The workshop could no longer be relied upon, and he only repaired neighbors' motorcycles from time to time. Every night, he would gaze at the remaining workshop tools and whisper, "I haven't given up, Father, even though this journey feels dark and exhausting." One afternoon, Raka met an old school friend. A small conversation left a deep mark on Raka's heart. "Why don't you try working in the city?" his friend said. "There are many big workshops in the city that need a skilled mechanic like you." Those words never left Raka's mind. Every night he pondered them while gazing at the clear sky, as bright as his dreams. At last, Raka asked his uncle for permission to try his luck in the city. With a heavy heart, his uncle allowed him to go. "Raka, if things don't work out, don't ever hesitate or feel ashamed to come back. This house will always be open for you," his uncle said. His modest savings, along with a little extra from his uncle, Raka set off for the city, leaving his village behind. The rice fields he used to see every day were now replaced by towering, luxurious buildings. His chest trembled. This was a completely new experience in his life. When he arrived in the city, he looked for a very simple rented room. That night, he slept on a thin mat, staring at the ceiling while praying that this would be a good beginning for his future. In the days that followed, Raka went from one workshop to another, applying for jobs. But reality turned out to be harsher than he had imagined. Time and again, he was rejected for the same reason. He didn't have an official work experience certificate. Meanwhile, in another corner of the same city, lived a woman named Dina. Her face was beautiful, her style graceful, but her heart was cold and hard as stone. She had just lost her husband forever. She was the owner of a large, successful, and once bustling workshop. But now, the place had grown quiet and fallen into decline. The mechanics could no longer endure Dina's arrogance and her lack of appreciation for them, so they left one by one. Now, the workshop only sold motorcycle spare parts, and even that was often quiet. Dina tried to learn about motorcycle engines, but it was too late. She was often deceived by dishonest mechanics, cheated by customers, and betrayed by friends who lured her into partnerships. She only valued men who were handsome, wealthy, and well-presented. To ordinary people, she almost never offered. The workshop that once thrived now seemed to be waiting for its final breath. Without realizing it, fate was slowly leading her to cross paths with a young man from the village who was struggling from the bottom. Raka, that night. Raka sat in deep thought, his eyes blank, his mind restless. His savings were only enough to last a few more days. He was on the verge of giving up. Suddenly, a job vacancy appeared on his phone. Experienced mechanic needed. Applications must be submitted in person. His heart pounded with doubt, yet also with hope. Maybe this is my chance, Rocca said to himself. The next morning, with a tired face but strong determination, Rocca took an online motorcycle taxi to the address listed. When he arrived, he stood before a large and spacious yet quiet workshop. The signboard was faded, its paint peeling, but traces of its former glory could still be felt. A female employee greeted him warmly. "Here to apply for the job, sir." "I'm Ika. Please have a seat. I'll call Miss Dina for you." Not long after, Dinah appeared with her arrogant demeanor. She looked Rocca up and down, from head to toe. In a cold tone, she asked quickly, "Where did you get your work experience?" Rocca swallowed hard. "I've been helping my father in the workshop since I was a child. I don't have a work certificate, but when it comes to engines, I truly master them. I only graduated from a vocational high school," he replied. Dina sighed, then leaned back in her chair. "All right, a 3-month trial. If you fail, don't expect to stay here." Her sarcastic, pessimistic tone pierced Rocca's heart, but he only lowered his head in silence. Deep inside, he was determined to prove his skills to this arrogant and prideful woman. The next day, Rocca began working at the workshop. Ika spent most of the time assisting him, while Dina rarely got involved. And when she did show up, she was more occupied with her phone, laughing with salesmen who offered spare parts, especially if they were handsome and well presented. The first day felt empty. Not a single customer came. Rocca kept himself busy by cleaning the dusty tools. And on the second day, a customer came in with his motorcycle. Rocca immediately handled it with great care. It didn't take long before the motorcycle was running smoothly again. The customer was very satisfied with Rocca's work. Word began to spread that there was now a skilled and professional mechanic at Mrs. Dina's workshop. One by one, people came to see for themselves. The result was the same. Every customer was highly satisfied with Rocca's work. Bustle again. The sound of engines, the smell of oil, and the laughter of customers filled the air just like before. Ika smiled with satisfaction at the sight. Dina, though pretending not to care, secretly began to notice. There was something different about that humble village boy, something that made the workshop feel alive once more. Day by day, the workshop grew busier. Motorbikes began lining up, filling the yard. The sound of engines could be heard almost all the time. Even though Dina acted cold, Rocca kept working without a single complaint. During their lunch breaks together, Ika often shared stories with Rocca. "Ma's Rocca, this workshop used to be so crowded when Mrs. Dina's husband was still alive. But after he passed away, the place nearly died out. Mrs. Dina was often deceived by people. That's why now she's strict, selective, and finds it hard to trust anyone. Many mechanics had come, but none of them stayed for long. I hope you'll feel at home working here, Ma's Rocca," said Ika, with a sincere smile. Rocca only nodded and gave a faint smile. "I hope so too, Cock. I really want to work here for a long time." Rocca's days grew busier as he patiently and carefully repaired motorcycles, often leaving him exhausted and overwhelmed. At lunchtime, he had to walk out to find a food stall since the workshop didn't provide meals. Even so, he remained grateful just to have work. When his first paycheck arrived, the amount wasn't much, just enough to cover his basic needs. Rocca smiled in relief and muttered softly to himself, "Maybe it's because I'm still in the trial period." Dina's attitude began to change. Sometimes she was friendly, other times as cold as ice and quick to anger. One day, when Ika fell ill and didn't come to work, Dina stepped in herself to serve the customers, prepare spare parts, and assist Rocca, who was busy at the time. After a full day at the workshop, that evening Rocca quietly said to Dina, "I think the workshop needs another worker. Ma'am, someone to prepare spare parts and help me with the work." Dina fell silent. staring blankly. Next month, Raka. Ever since my husband passed away, I've often been deceived by mechanics, salesmen, and coworkers. Raka remained quiet and just listened. He wasn't good at finding the right words to give Dina advice. However, after Aika returned to work, Dina's attitude toward Raka turned cold again, as if the closeness of the other day had been nothing more than small talk. Time went on, the workshop grew busier, and so did Raka and Aika. Dina sometimes lent a hand, though she was more often occupied with entertaining salesmen and bank employees who came one after another. Raka knew they were only trying to get close to Dina, the beautiful woman who owned a large workshop. Raka didn't pay much attention to it. What mattered was that he stayed focused on his work. Eventually, a young man named Roni came to help Raka with his tasks. Yet something weighed on Raka's heart. When the workshop was busy, Dina often raised her voice, as if she wanted to show her authority and control. Especially when salesmen or business partners were around, Dina's words often cut deep, making Raka feel as though he had no dignity and was of no worth. Behind his calm face, Raka carried his pain, yet he chose to remain silent. For him, dignity was not something to be displayed before others, but something proven through hard work, patience, and honesty. As the days passed and the workshop grew busier, Raka continued to endure the harshness of life. Sometimes, he went the entire day without eating, just to serve the endless stream of customers. Sometimes, even when he managed to eat, Dina would often scold him for taking too long, even though he had only eaten for a few minutes. Raka didn't pay much attention to it. What mattered was that he stayed focused on his work. Eventually, a young man named Roni came to help Raka with his tasks. Yet something weighed on Raka's heart. When the workshop was busy, Dina often raised her voice as if she wanted to show her authority and control. Especially when salesmen or business partners were around, Dina's words often cut deep, making Raka feel as though he had no dignity and was of no worth. 3 months had passed, the trial period was over, and the workshop was growing rapidly. Yet Raka's salary remained the same. He didn't complain, he stayed silent, enduring the bitterness for the sake of meeting his needs. One day, at lunchtime, Raka asked for permission to step out for his meal. When he returned, the workshop was already crowded with customers. Dina, who had been talking to a salesman, immediately stood up and scolded Raka in front of everyone. "Raka, the customers have been waiting, and here you are, taking your time and enjoying a long lunch." Raka lowered his head, his chest trembling as he held back his emotions and pain. With a shaky voice, he said, "Mrs. Dina, I'm human too. I need to eat, and I get tired as well. At first, I thought I could last long working here, but it turns out I can't. No wonder so many mechanics didn't stay. You never appreciated them. I'm sorry if I've disappointed you. Starting today, I quit this job." The atmosphere fell silent. Ika looked at Raka with tears in her eyes. She knew very well that it was thanks to him the workshop had come alive and busy again. Yet Dina had never appreciated Raka's sacrifices and sincerity. Dina remained silent. His words had pierced her heart, but her pride kept her from apologizing to him. Wounded and heartbroken, Raka left the workshop. He knew his dignity had been trampled and belittled by Dina. That night, he sat alone in his rented room, his mind in turmoil. Deep down, he still felt pity for Dina and her workshop. He knew very well that without him, the place could collapse and shut its doors for good. But he also knew his heart had been hurt far too many times. The next day, Raka truly didn't come to work. The workshop still opened, but only to sell spare parts. In the days that followed, customers grew disappointed because Raka, the meticulous and patient mechanic who always served them with care, was no longer there. In her office, Dina sat with Aika, her eyes staring blankly. She had just realized how terribly she had treated Raka. "It feels like this workshop will never be busy again without Raka," Dina said softly. You're right, ma'am. Raka is patient and meticulous, and he's also a good man. If he leaves, all our customers will leave with him, Ika replied. Dina nodded slowly. Agreeing with Ika's words. At last, Dina asked Ika to contact Raka and persuade him to return to work at the workshop. With hesitation, Ika sent a message to Raka. For a long while, there was no reply until finally her phone buzzed. I've already quit. Kakika. Raka's short message read. Ika typed again. Many customers are looking for you, Kak Raka. Raka fell silent, not replying right away. He had no idea that Dina was sitting right beside Ika, reading every one of his responses. Dina sat in silence, dazed, her face gloomy and her hands trembling. She truly felt all alone. And for some reason, deep in her heart, there was a fear and worry of losing Raka forever. The next day, Raka still didn't come to work. Dina grew restless, but her pride made her too embarrassed to reach out to him herself. She asked Ika once again to contact Raka. Carefully, Ika sent him a message. Why haven't you come in yet? Mrs. Dina is waiting for you, Raka. I never said I was coming back to work. Raka replied. Ika sent another message. Many customers are turning away because you're not here. Raka, don't you feel sorry for Mrs. Dina? Actually, I do feel sorry for her, Raka answered, but her attitude is so hurtful, as if I have no worth at all. And the salary isn't much either. It doesn't match the hard work I've been putting in. The chat went on, but this time Dina secretly took over Ika's phone while Ika was busy serving customers. Dina read Roka's replies with her chest trembling. When it was time to go home, Ika handed her phone to Dina. Use my phone, I'll pick it up tomorrow. That way, you'll know Raka's feelings and what he really wants. He won't know it's you. At first, Dina refused out of embarrassment, but Ika kept insisting, until finally, Dina accepted with some hesitation and shame. That night, Dina gathered her courage and, using Ika's phone, sent a message to Raka. Raka, how much salary are you asking for? I'll let Mrs. Dina know, Dina wrote, pretending to be Ika. I only ask for something reasonable, just like, in general. I also want a lunch break to eat and perform my prayers, Raka replied. All right, I'll let Mrs. Dina know, Dina answered. Raka had no idea he was actually exchanging messages with Dina. The conversation went on, eventually even touching on personal matters. I just feel sorry for Mrs. Dina, nothing more, Raka wrote. Dina quickly replied, Do you like Mrs. Dina? Raka smiled as he read the message, just pity, because even though she's rich and beautiful, she's very fragile. Dina's heart pounded as her fingers typed swiftly. So, do you like Mrs. Dina or not? Raka didn't respond for a long while. Finally, he answered, I don't know. She's beautiful, but very harsh. Usually, when someone feels pity, Raka, it eventually turns into liking and love. The message read. Raka gave a bitter smile. I know my place, Ika. Mrs. Dina is far too high above me. Even now, I work so hard, but she never appreciates me at all. Dina lowered her head, then replied, Maybe Mrs. Dina just hasn't fully gotten to know you yet. The conversation went on, until finally, Dina sent a message. Mrs. Dina agrees to all your conditions and requests, Raka. Don't lie to me, Ika, Raka replied quickly. No, Raka, I'm serious. Starting from your salary, lunch, and even your prayer time, everything is up to you. Mrs. Dina doesn't want to lose a hardworking, patient, sincere, and skilled worker like you. All right, Ika, I'll start working again tomorrow, Raka replied, not realizing that he was actually chatting with Dina. The next day, Raka started working, and the workshop's atmosphere came alive again. The sound of engines, the smell of oil, and the customers' chatter once more filled the place that had felt empty without Raka's presence. Secretly, Dina often watched Raka as he worked with full focus, clearly feeling a sense of relief that was hard to put into words. Ika only gave a mischievous smile, noticing Dina's awkward behavior. She often teased Dina with playful whispers, making Dina smile and blush. That afternoon, Dina ordered 3 portions of food for the 3 of them. Rocca, still keeping his distance and being considerate, chose a separate spot for lunch. Dina wasn't offended. Instead, she grew even more admiring of Rocca's noble character. At night, when she was at home, Dina often opened her phone, wanting to contact Rocca directly. She longed to ask about his well-being, his life, and to get to know his personality more closely. Yet, her fingers always stopped right before pressing the send button. She simply couldn't bring herself to go through with it. Dina's attitude toward Rocca truly changed. She was always caring and understanding. She even told Rocca to use the motorcycle that had long been unused at the office so he wouldn't get too tired. At first, he refused, but Dina kept insisting until Rocca couldn't bring himself to turn her down. Days went by, and the workshop grew busier. Rocca worked earnestly, never once complaining. Dina was no longer cold and distant toward him. Occasionally, when there were no customers, Dina, Ika, and Rocca would sit together on the long bench in front of the workshop, chatting lightly and sharing small laughs. Ika often noticed Dina's stealing secret glances at Rocca. She was happy to see her friend Dina beginning to fall for Rocca, a man who was honest, sincere, and noble in character. As evening approached, Ika was about to go home. She left her phone on Dina's desk, who was sitting there lost in thought with a blank stare. Ika said playfully, "Why not just go all the way, ma'am? No need to hold back." Teasing with a mischievous smile. Dina blushed, then pinched Ika's hand affectionately. That night, holding Ika's phone with trembling fingers, Dina gathered the courage to send a message to Rocca, starting with small talk and casual conversation. She finally asked, "So Rocca, do you feel comfortable working at Mrs. Dina's workshop?" Rocca quickly replied, "Yes, I feel really comfortable now. Mrs. Dina has changed a lot. She's no longer strict and she appreciates my hard work." Suddenly, Rocca asked, "Ika, is Mrs. Dina still single or has she remarried?" Dina froze, a warm feeling spreading through her chest. She smiled faintly before typing a teasing reply. "Why, Rocca? Are you planning to sign up as her future husband?" "No, not at all. I was just asking," he answered with honesty. Dina sent her reply. Her husband had passed away, she was still single, and she hadn't yet found the right man to be by her side. With the courage she had left, Dina sent a message to Rocca. "Do you like Mrs. Dina, Rocca?" Her heart pounded as she waited for his reply. "Well, yes, I like her as my boss. She used to be really strict, but now she's become kind and caring toward me. I really enjoy working at her workshop." Dina's smile bloomed, her cheeks blushing even though no one could see it. She bit her lip, then asked Rocca another question. "Rocca, what if Mrs. Dina fell in love with you?" Dina asked. Rocca's reply took a while, making her heart race as she waited. Finally, his answer appeared. "That's impossible. But if it did happen, of course, I'd be very happy. Still, that's just a dream too far out of reach. I know my place." Dina smiled and teased. "So that means you do have a crush on Mrs. Dina, Rocca." "I know my place, Ika," he repeated. Dina stared at the screen, her feelings in complete turmoil. Dina wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. Then she typed something, still pretending to be Ika. "Mrs. Dina has changed a lot since you came along. It seems like she's fallen for you, Rocca." "Ah, that's impossible," Rocca quickly replied. "She has plenty of friends who are attractive, handsome, and wealthy. Why would she be interested in me? Mrs. Dina only needs my help, nothing more." Dina took a deep breath, a sting in her heart. Then she asked, "Rocca, do you already have a girlfriend?" "Not yet, ma'am," Rocca answered. "I've never dated before. I'm traumatized back then. My mother left my father for another man. My father raised me all on his own until he eventually passed away. I'm afraid when it comes to women, but as for a soulmate, I leave it all to God Almighty." Dina's eyes grew hot, feeling the ache in Roka's heart. Dina quickly replied as if giving hope and encouragement, saying, "Who knows, maybe your soulmate is my mother." Roka, don't be ridiculous, Ika. Mrs. Dina is way out of my league. I'm just a mechanic who happens to work for a boss named Mrs. Dina. I don't dare to hope for more than that said. Gurko Dina read the message with her heart pounding, her hands trembling. Finally, she wrote a message to Raka. Then just be honest, do you like Mrs. Dina or not? Dina was silent, waiting for Raka's answer. After waiting for a while with her heart racing, a reply finally appeared. Okay, I'll be honest, but this is a secret, all right? I like Mrs. Dina. That's one of the reasons I enjoy working at her workshop. But please, don't tell anyone. Roka's reply made Dina want to cry out of happiness. She covered her mouth, holding back both laughter and tears of joy, her heart blooming like a garden in full bloom. Raka had no idea that the woman he was talking about was smiling shyly with blushing cheeks behind the screen. That's enough for now, Raka. I'm going to sleep, Dina replied, trying to steady her racing heartbeat. Okay, Ika. Good night, and please, don't tell Mrs. Dina, all right? Raka asked as he ended the conversation. Dina placed her phone on her chest, imagining Raka in her arms. Her eyes gazed at the ceiling with an endless smile. That night, Dina felt her heart come alive again, after the loss of her husband a few years ago. The next day, Raka worked as usual. Dina acted as if nothing had happened, though her face often showed a shy expression. Ika, who knew the secret, chose to stay quiet, waiting to see where the story of their relationship would lead, even though she hoped the two hearts from different worlds would unite forever. Raka still kept his distance from Dina, realizing that she was a dream far too high for him to reach. That afternoon, a handsome and dashing man came to pick Dina up. They looked so close and familiar with each other that Raka's heart ached, yet he remained silent, holding back his jealousy. He knew Dina was his boss, and nothing more. Almost every day, as lunchtime approached, that man would come to pick Dina up. Raka could clearly see the man holding Dina's hand affectionately, making his chest feel tight. One day, Dina came with that man after lunch. She brought 2 portions of food for Ika and Raka, but, unfortunately, they had already eaten. The man spoke harshly to Raka, saying, "Dina has been so good to you. She gives you lunch breaks, feeds you every day, even gave you a motorcycle." Raka, who had always stayed silent, could no longer hold back his emotions. "Sir, I work seriously, not for fun. I never asked to be given food, let alone a motorcycle." The man replied sarcastically, "You should be grateful you were accepted to work here. If you were my employee, I would have fired you yesterday." Dina, who had been silent all this time, stood up and rebuked the man. "Enough. Raka has worked hard, and without him, this workshop wouldn't be this busy. And you don't interfere in my business affairs." The man was shocked and, with a tone full of accusation, said, "Don't tell me you have a relationship with this village mechanic." Dina looked straight at him, her face red with anger. "Yes, it's true. I do have a close relationship with him. We love each other. From now on, you don't need to come here anymore," Dina said sharply. The man was deeply offended and left, holding back his anger. Ika and Raka were stunned, and the atmosphere fell silent. Dina lowered her head, feeling both relieved and embarrassed. Raka looked at her, trying to understand. He thought Dina only wanted to get rid of that man with her words, nothing more. As the afternoon came, Ika had already gone home. Raka was still tidying up the tools while Dina sat in silence, watching him. When he was about to leave, Raka softly said, "Thank you, ma'am, for standing up for me earlier." Dina looked at him and replied, "Everything I said earlier, about my feelings for you, was true, Raka." "You think I don't know that you like me too, Raka? You're just too afraid to say it." Raka fell silent, shocked and embarrassed. "Then did Ika tell you, ma'am?" Dina shook her head. "I knew it from you yourself." All this time, I borrowed Ika's phone to see your thoughts about working here. But it turned out to be more than that. There are deeper feelings in your heart for me." Roka stood speechless, blushing with shame, not knowing what to say. Finally, Raka admitted, "Yes, ma'am, I love you, but I didn't dare to say it. You're far above me. I know my place." Dina moved closer, her eyes filled with tears. "Raka, if we care for each other, then don't be afraid anymore, okay?" Raka only bowed his head in silence. That evening, they began to open their hearts to complete each other, even though the path ahead was far from certain. Days went by. The workshop grew busier and more lively. The atmosphere that once felt tense now became warm. They often joked around in the middle of their busy work. Sometimes, Ika would tease Reika. "Should I lend my phone to Mrs. Dina again, Reika, so you two can be all sweet again?" Reika smiled shyly, while Dina stayed quiet, blushing. Those little jokes kept the workshop filled with laughter and joy. As time went on, the workshop grew rapidly, customers became more and more crowded, and new employees were recruited to help with Raka's tasks. The two of them no longer hid their feelings. All the employees knew, and even the customers could sense it from the way they spoke and looked at each other. A relationship that had once been full of secrecy and suspicion had now turned into a partnership built on mutual strength and support. Raka's presence not only brought life to the workshop, but also brought new colors into Dina's life. Raka, a simple man yet full of sincerity and honesty, managed to completely melt her heart. And Ika could only be grateful to see her friend and boss find happiness once again. The moral of the story: never hate someone with all your might. Because one day, that person might be the one you love with all your heart. Thank you, and see you again.